friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I would do a video showing you 5 different ways that you can color elephants using Copic markers. So I'm going to be using the little elephant from the Lawn Fawn Elephant Parade stamp set to illustrate this. And as always, I have stamped the images out on some Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink. So I'm going to jump right in with my first little guy here, and I'm going to start with some cool grays. I'm going to be using C0, C1, C3, and C5, and in each of these combos that I'm doing, I'm going to use similar tones of markers. So I'm not going to jump to like really dark shades or anything. I'm going to stay in these mid to light tones. I think they just suit elephants the best, but also it'll give you a better comparison from elephant to elephant, so you can see which color combination you like the best, which ones you might want to use to color your images, and maybe if there's a new set of grays that you might like to add to your collection, or if you're still just building up your collection and you don't have any grays, this might kind of help you get pointed in the right direction with which ones to start with. So as I said, I'm going to start with these cool grays, and I color darkest to lightest, so I use the C5 to add in a little bit of shadow. I've been really sparing with those shadows because I didn't want the elephants to get too dark. I wanted them to stay nice and light. So right away I blended out that C5 with the C3. Now I'm coming in with the C1 and pulling that color even further out toward the lightest area that I want to leave on each of these guys. I kind of just picked little spots where I wanted those highlights to be. So on the lower part of the face, then kind of in the middle of the body. And to finish him up, I'll do a quick light wash with that highlighted shade, the C0. Then I'll take my gel pen and just write down the shades that I used so that you can remember from image to image, or at the very end you can take a screenshot if you'd like to and save that for your references. But I'm going to move on to my next combo, which is going to be the warm grays. I'm using W00, W1, W3, and W5. I'm kind of just going in order of the gray tones that I added to my collection. So I started out with the C's and then I moved on to the W's. And I actually did a video a while ago where I went over all the different gray families and colored some little gorillas, and that way I used the whole range all the way up to the darkest of each of these shades, and I gave you my thoughts on each of the different gray families. So if you missed that video and you're interested in that, I'll go ahead and link that up above in the cards, and I'll link it in the videos at the end, so you can find that. You can also find it on my Copic favorites playlist, so check that out if you're interested in more information on the different gray families and which ones I recommend. So I'm finishing up with this little guy. I'm putting my shading in the exact same places. I'm trying to keep it consistent across the board here, so it is really an even comparison. So I'm just using that lightest shade now, the W00. I don't have the W0 for the warm grays, I just have the 00, but they're very, very similar. So I'm just using what I have. I'll go ahead and write down that combo again at the top, and then I'll move on to number 3 using the toner grays. The toner grays were the third gray family that I added to my collection, and I do really love them. It took me 10 years to add in another set of grays because I was just very content with the cool and the warm for a really long time. But once I did add in the toner grays, I really fell in love with them, and that made me wonder if I would also like the neutrals, so eventually I went ahead and bought those as well. So that's how I ended up with all 4 of the gray tone families. But anyway, I don't think you need them all to start out, but like I said, check out that other video if you're interested in more thoughts on the different gray families. So again, I'm just working my way from darkest to lightest, adding the barest minimum of the darkest shade, that T5, blending it out with the T3, always making sure to catch the edge of the previous shade and overlap them a tiny bit. That's how you're going to get the smoothest blend. And then for the lightest areas, just doing a quick light wash, very light, to keep that nice and bright with a lot of the white core of the paper shining through. So I'll write those marker colors down again and move on to the last gray family, which is the neutral grays. And there really are different ways that you could do the shadows on these guys. You could put them on the underside of the trunk if you wanted to, and lower on the belly if you wanted to, and put the highlight up at the top. I'm kind of thinking that in that curve of the trunk, depending on where the sun is in the situation, the light would not be able to hit as well, so that's why I decided to put in some shadow there. There's also those little crinkle lines that the artist has drawn that I think also kind of indicates a place where shadows belong. And then on the back of the body, his big ears would kind of be flapping back and casting some shade on his back. So it really depends on the light source that you want to do. I don't think there's a right or wrong. It really depends on where you're imagining that your sun is. But anyway, I just wanted to keep it consistent across the board, like I mentioned, so that you can really see the difference between each of these images and you're not kind of distracted by different shadows. So I'm going to write down this last gray combo, and then I'm going to move on to one final combo. I thought it might be fun to do some E's. I've been using these E's 70s for mice and sometimes for bunnies for a little while, and I thought they might also look nice for an elephant because they're very warm. They have a lot of gray mixed into the brown. It's a grayish. So I thought it would be cool to see how these would look on an elephant, especially I think it's the Indian elephants that are a little bit more brown toned. So I'm using W00 with E70, E71, and E74. If you wanted to, you could also leave off the W00 and add in the E77, but I didn't want him to get too dark, and I actually like throwing in the W0 with this E70 combo because it just lightens the image up and kind of neutralizes a bit of the brown with the gray. It does take a little extra work to blend them together though. So here I am bringing in that W00, catching the edge of that E70 and pulling it down into the lighter space. And at first it works well. On smaller images it also works well without too much effort. But because this is a larger image, that W00 kind of pushes that E70 away. You can see it starting to creep away. So I did throw in a second layer of that E70, just very soft little flicks, and then blended that out a second time with the W00. Again, just very soft, and that is going to just help those smooth out even further. So you can go ahead and decide which of these combos you like the best. Maybe it also just depends on the card that you're coloring. I mean, depending on the setting, you may want different combinations. It's always fun to mix things up and try different ones as well. So I would normally add in a little bit extra detail, some rosy cheeks, maybe a little pink in the ears, some little freckles and things, but I wanted to keep it simple for today's video so you can just see the color combinations as they are. Let me know down in the comments below which one is your favorite, which one you just gravitate more towards than the others. And if you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up to let me know, because I've been experimenting more with these kind of tip style content and I'd really love your feedback. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you had a good one, and I'll see you soon in another video. Bye-bye.